Imagine the dust of Montana's Hell Creek Badlands in the early 20th century. A storm gathers on the horizon, the wind whipping across a barren landscape that once teemed with monsters. From beneath layers of stone, a colossal bone emerges, thick as a man's arm, scarred by time, yet whispering of a predator that once ruled the Cretaceous world. This was not just any creature. This was a hunter so immense, so ferocious, that its very name would strike terror and awe across generations. Tyrannosaurus rex, the tyrant lizard king. But the fascination with T.Rex is not only about size or teeth. It is about power, mystery, and survival. For over 66 million years, its skeleton lay entombed, until humans uncovered its secrets. And with each fossil unearthed, we confronted a question that lingers still. Was this beast merely a brute force of nature, or a complex animal whose story reshaped both science and imagination? 66 million years ago, the world stood on the edge of catastrophe. It was the twilight of the Cretaceous, an age when lush floodplains stretched across what is now North America. Towering conifers and flowering plants blanketed the land, while herds of horned dinosaurs like Triceratops grazed beneath the shadow of predators. At the top of this volatile ecosystem reigned Tyrannosaurus rex. This was a landscape of extremes. Summers burned hot and humid, winters brought storms across inland seas, and every day was a struggle for survival. Vast rivers carved through sedimentary plains, leaving behind the perfect stage for fossils that would one day reveal the giants of this lost world. Amid saber-toothed lizards, armored ankylosaurs, and swift raptors, one predator towered above all others. Here, in this fragile moment before extinction, the T.Rex thrived. Its massive skull built for bone-crushing power, its keen senses tuned to detect the faintest movement. This was not merely another dinosaur. It was the apex, the embodiment of domination at the end of the dinosaur age. When Barnum Brown unearthed the first partial skeleton of Tyrannosaurus rex in 1902, he could hardly have imagined the storm of fascination it would unleash. At the time, the bones were unlike anything paleontologists had ever seen. Massive jaws studded with serrated teeth, limb bones thicker than a man's torso, and vertebrae that hinted at a creature built on a scale far beyond imagination. By 1905, Henry Fairfield Osborn of the American Museum of Natural History had given this predator its now legendary name, Tyrannosaurus rex, the tyrant lizard king. From that moment, the legend was born. Over the decades, each new discovery added layers to the story. In the 1990s, the fossil known as Sioux, discovered in South Dakota, revealed the most complete T.Rex ever found. Standing over 40 feet long, with a skull more than 5 feet in length, Sioux's bones bore evidence of a violent life, healed fractures, puncture marks, and even infections. This was not an untouched giant. It was an animal that had fought, endured, and survived in a world of relentless struggle. Later, Scotty, another colossal specimen from Canada, would challenge even Sioux for the title of the largest T.Rex, offering a glimpse into just how massive these animals could become. But sheer size tells only part of the tale. For decades, scientists debated the behavior of T.Rex. Was it a relentless hunter or merely a scavenger, feasting on the carcasses of the fallen? Evidence began to tilt the scales toward a more complex reality. Fossilized bones of Triceratops and Hadrosaurs show unmistakable tooth marks from T.Rex, deep gouges, some even showing signs of healing. This meant that these prey animals had survived initial attacks, living long enough for their wounds to begin repairing. Such evidence is clear. T.Rex did not simply scavenge, it hunted, and it left its mark. Its arsenal was formidable. Biomechanical models suggest a bite force of up to 57,000 newtons, capable of crushing bone with ease. Unlike big cats or wolves today, which slice flesh with sharp teeth, T.Rex pulverized skeletons, swallowing bones, marrow, and all. In fact, coprolites, fossilized droppings, contain fragments of shattered bone, testifying to this destructive feeding strategy. And yet, brute force was not its only weapon. The olfactory bulbs within the T.Rex skull were enormous, hinting at a sense of smell so acute it could detect a carcass from miles away. Its forward-facing eyes gave it binocular vision, an advantage in judging distance during a charge. Studies of its inner ear suggest strong balance and head coordination, crucial for a predator that relied on rapid, decisive movements. Far from being a lumbering brute, T.Rex was a finely tuned predator. Still, it had its limits. Once portrayed as a sprinting monster capable of outpacing a jeep, modern biomechanics tell another story. The sheer mass of T.Rex, up to 9 tons, would have put enormous strain on its skeleton if it ran too quickly. Today, most scientists believe its maximum speed was between 12 and 20 miles per hour, not the 40 mph once imagined. But this does not diminish its threat. In the floodplains of the Cretaceous, few prey animals could match its power, and T.Rex needed only to close the distance for a single bone-crushing strike. Its life history, too, reveals surprises. Bone histology, microscopic studies of growth rings, shows that T.Rex underwent a teenage growth spurt, packing on hundreds of pounds each year during adolescence. By the age of 20, it reached full size, dominating its ecosystem until death, which usually came around 30 years. Such growth patterns also suggest shifting ecological roles. Young Tyrannosaurs, leaner and faster, hunted smaller prey, while adults grew into the role of apex predator. In this way, T.Rex filled multiple niches within its lifetime, ensuring dominance from youth to maturity. The fossil record also hints at darker behaviors. Bite marks found on T.Rex bones themselves suggest cannibalism. Whether from desperate starvation, territorial fights, or opportunistic feeding, it is clear that the tyrant king was not above preying upon its own kind. This adds a chilling layer to its reputation, painting a portrait of a predator as ruthless with rivals as with its prey. Then came one of the most astonishing discoveries in paleontology: soft tissue remnants within a T.Rex femur, discovered by Mary Schweitzer in 2005. Under microscopes, researchers found what appeared to be blood vessels, collagen, and even possible cell structures, preserved for tens of millions of years. Though debated and controversial, the find opened entirely new possibilities for understanding ancient biology, hinting that the tyrant king still had secrets locked away in its bones. Its life history, too, reveals surprises. Bone histology, microscopic studies of growth rings, shows that T.Rex underwent a teenage growth spurt, packing on hundreds of pounds each year during adolescence. By the age of 20, it reached full size, dominating its ecosystem until death, which usually came around 30 years. Such growth patterns also suggest shifting ecological roles. Young Tyrannosaurs, leaner and faster, hunted smaller prey, while adults grew into the role of apex predator. In this way, T.Rex filled multiple niches within its lifetime, ensuring dominance from youth to maturity. The fossil record also hints at darker behaviors. Bite marks found on T.Rex bones themselves suggest cannibalism. Whether from desperate starvation, territorial fights, or opportunistic feeding, it is clear that the tyrant king was not above preying upon its own kind. This adds a chilling layer to its reputation, painting a portrait of a predator as ruthless with rivals as with its prey. Then came one of the most astonishing discoveries in paleontology: soft tissue remnants within a T.Rex femur, discovered by Mary Schweitzer in 2005. Under microscopes, researchers found what appeared to be blood vessels, collagen, and even possible cell structures, preserved for tens of millions of years. Though debated and controversial, the find opened entirely new possibilities for understanding ancient biology, hinting that the tyrant king still had secrets locked away in its bones. For more than a century, Tyrannosaurus rex has been painted as the ultimate killing machine, a roaring monster crashing through primeval forests. But the closer scientists look, the more its image fractures. Beneath the shadow of its towering skeleton lies a storm of controversy, each discovery raising unsettling questions that force us to rethink what we thought we knew. The first great debate was simple yet profound. Was T.Rex primarily a hunter or a scavenger? For decades, some paleontologists argued that its massive size and relatively slow speed made it incapable of chasing down prey. Instead, they pictured it as a giant vulture, relying on its powerful nose to sniff out the carcasses of fallen dinosaurs. But then came the bones: Triceratops skulls punctured by T.Rex teeth, vertebrae scarred by its bite marks, even prey animals that survived an initial attack. These fossils told a different story. T.Rex was no passive scavenger. It was both hunter and opportunist, a predator that could kill but would not refuse an easy meal. Another shock came from its own bones. On the skeletons of Sue and Scotty, scientists found evidence of brutal lives: fractured ribs, crushed tailbones, and infections that gnawed into the bone. Yet these animals lived long enough for their wounds to heal, proof that even kings of the Cretaceous were battered and scarred. Most startling were the bite marks on T.Rex bones themselves. They matched the spacing of T.Rex teeth, suggesting acts of cannibalism. Whether from desperation during famine or savage territorial clashes, the idea of the tyrant king feeding on its own kind was both grisly and fascinating. Then, in 2005, came perhaps the most controversial discovery in dinosaur science. Paleontologist Mary Schweitzer reported finding what appeared to be soft tissues inside a T.Rex femur, blood vessels, proteins, even possible red blood cell structures preserved for 68 million years. The announcement rocked the scientific community. Was it even possible for organic material to survive for so long? Some dismissed it as contamination, others as mineral imitations. But repeated studies confirmed proteins like collagen, opening the door to molecular paleontology. Suddenly, the line between science fiction and reality blurred. If traces of ancient tissue could persist, could fragments of DNA survive as well? The whispers of Jurassic Park no longer felt entirely impossible. Yet not all revelations were cinematic triumphs. In recent years, a fierce debate erupted over whether T.Rex was truly a single species. Some researchers proposed splitting specimens into 3 distinct species based on differences in bone robustness and teeth. If true, the tyrant king might not have been one monarch, but a dynasty of closely related predators. Critics fiercely challenged this, arguing the variations could simply reflect age, sex, or regional differences. The debate continues, a reminder that even the most famous dinosaur in the world remains, in many ways, unfinished science. And still, the contradictions mount. Artists once clad T.Rex in scales. Then came the suggestion of feathers, drawn from smaller tyrannosaur relatives in Asia. Did the king wear a crown of plumage in its youth, only to shed it in adulthood? Reconstructions shift from terrifying reptilian monsters to bird-like giants, unsettling those who grew up with a very different image. Each new fossil chips away at the certainty of what T.Rex looked like, sounded like, or even behaved like. The biopic of T.Rex is not a tale of one definitive truth, but a struggle between myth and evidence. For every revelation, a dozen new mysteries arise. It was a hunter, yet also a scavenger. A king, yet vulnerable. A fearsome predator, yet possibly feathered. Its bones tell stories of battles won and diseases endured, but they also conceal secrets we may never fully unlock. And then came the greatest tragedy of all, the end. 66 million years ago, an asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula, releasing energy greater than billions of nuclear bombs. Wildfires raged across continents. The sky darkened with ash, shutting down photosynthesis. The global food chain collapsed. For T.Rex, there was no escape. The apex predator that once terrorized its world fell victim to forces far beyond its power. In the fossil layers, the story ends abruptly. No more teeth, no more footprints, only silence. But perhaps the true tragedy of T.Rex is not its extinction, but our obsession with trying to resurrect it. The closer we look, the more elusive it becomes. Its image, magnified by cinema and imagination, overshadows the complex animal it truly was. T.Rex is both real and myth, flesh and fossil, science and legend.
Wow.
And it is in this tension, between what we know and what we dream, that the tyrant king continues to reign. What does the story of Tyrannosaurus rex truly teach us? On the surface, it is the tale of a predator. The sharpest teeth, the strongest bite, the undisputed ruler of its domain. Yet when the bones are pieced together, a deeper message emerges. T.Rex was not invincible. It bore wounds, fought rivals, endured disease, and finally vanished in an instant when Earth itself changed. Its story is one of power, yes, but also fragility. For us, the lesson is unmistakable. No matter how dominant a species may appear, survival is never guaranteed. The asteroid that ended T.Rex reminds us of the thin line between flourishing and extinction, a line humanity itself now walks as we face climate change and global ecological crises. T.Rex is a mirror. It shows us both the heights of dominance and the inevitability of vulnerability. And yet, there is inspiration too. From a handful of fossils, we have reconstructed not only an animal, but an entire vanished world. The persistence of paleontologists, sifting through stone for clues, speaks to our species' greatest gift, the drive to question, to imagine, to know. T.Rex has become more than a dinosaur. It is a symbol of science's ability to reach back into deep time, to resurrect voices long silenced. It also reveals something about ourselves. We turned a predator into a cultural icon, projecting onto it our fears and our fascination with power. The Tyrant King endures not because of its teeth, but because it lives within human imagination. It tells us that the past is never dead. It shapes the stories we tell, the myths we create, and the lessons we carry forward. The story of Tyrannosaurus Rex is far from over. Each fossil unearthed, each theory challenged, adds another chapter to the life of a creature that should have been lost forever. 66 million years after its extinction, the Tyrant King continues to dominate our museums, our films, and our imaginations. It is both a scientific puzzle and a cultural legend, a bridge between what once was and what we long to understand. But perhaps the greatest mystery lies not in the bones themselves, but in our obsession. Why do we keep returning to T.Rex? Why does this single predator, among thousands of prehistoric species, hold such an unshakable grip on our collective mind? Maybe it is because T.Rex embodies something primal within us, the awe of nature's power, the fear of mortality, the fascination with survival. As we leave the Cretaceous behind, one question lingers. If humanity were to vanish tomorrow, what creature would future beings remember us by? Would they see us as rulers, as destroyers, or as storytellers? The fate of T.Rex warns us that even kings can fall. Yet it also reminds us that stories, fossilized in stone, etched into memory, can outlast even extinction. If you've been captivated by this journey into the world of the Tyrant King, join us as we continue to explore the mysteries of ancient life. Subscribe, share your thoughts, and step with us into the shadows of prehistory, because the story of life on Earth is far larger, stranger, and more powerful than we ever imagined.